The desert colony around Mora was quiet at sunrise. The sand looked golden, and the wind carried a soft humming sound from the alien buildings. Captain Elias Ward stood in the middle of the colony's open square, sweat beading on his forehead as the aliens formed a circle around him. He had seen many strange places during his service with the Human Frontier Corps, but nothing like this. The aliens, tall, purple-skinned, and silver-haired, watched him with a mix of fear and hope. Elias had come here only to deliver supplies and secure peace negotiations. But now the colony elders were standing before him with lowered heads, showing respect humans rarely received on alien worlds. Something big was about to happen, and Elias felt tension rising like a storm. The elder, a thin alien with glowing blue eyes, stepped forward and said in a shaky voice, "Human warrior, today we give you our greatest honor, a bride from our royal line." Elias blinked in surprise. "A bride? I didn't come here for that." The aliens murmured nervously. The elder raised his hand for silence. "Please understand, this is our tradition. When a warrior saves our people, he must be gifted a bride of high value." Elias crossed his arms. He had rescued 2 children from a collapsing mine earlier that week. He didn't do it for a reward, but refusing openly might insult their culture and break the fragile peace he had worked so hard to build. Still, he wasn't ready to marry a stranger. He spoke carefully. "I respect your tradition, but I don't need a reward. I only want peace between our people." The elder gave a sad smile. "Peace is why we must offer her." His voice dropped lower. "You are the only one who can protect her now." The crowd stepped aside, opening a path. Elias saw 2 guards pushing a floating chair toward him. And sitting in that chair was a young alien woman, beautiful, calm, and missing both legs from the knee down. Her skin was bright lavender, smooth like polished stone. Her silver-white hair fell over her shoulders like soft light. Her face was gentle but strong, with sharp cheekbones and bright violet eyes that didn't show fear, only quiet determination. Elias felt his jaw tighten. He didn't expect this. The elder spoke softly. "This is Lyra of the royal line. She was injured in the war. We all thought she would never stand again, but she refused to die. She trains every day, even without legs. She is stronger than any warrior here." Lyra looked straight at Elias, her eyes steady. "If you do not want me, I understand, but I will not break. I am not weak." Her voice wasn't soft or shy. It was steady, bold, and proud. Elias swallowed. She wasn't what he imagined when they said bride, but she was far from helpless. There was strength in her that reminded him of frontline soldiers who had been through the worst battles and still stood tall inside. Before he could answer, loud shouting came from the far side of the colony. Several aliens rushed into the square, carrying a wounded guard. Blood dripped onto the sand, dark red and heavy. "They are coming!" one shouted. "The raiders are returning." The elder's face turned pale. "So soon?" Elias reacted immediately. "How many?" 20, maybe more." Elias cursed under his breath. The raiders were a brutal group who lived outside the desert border. They attacked any colony they could reach. And the Roundmore colony was weak, low on weapons, low on food, and low on fighters. Lyra's floating chair moved toward him. She stared at him with fierce determination. "If you accept me," she said, "I will fight beside you. I will not leave my people to die." Elias frowned. "You can't fight without—" Lyra suddenly grabbed the side of her chair and lifted herself up using only her arms. Her muscles tightened. She balanced herself perfectly, her whole body steady and strong. Her eyes burned with focus. "I said I will fight." Her voice cut through the air like a blade. Elias was stunned. This wasn't weakness. This was power. More power than he expected from anyone. The elder stepped forward again. "Elias Ward, will you take her as your bride? If you do, our laws allow you to command all of us in battle. You will lead us." So that was the truth. They needed him to save the colony. He looked again at Lyra. She met his gaze without blinking. She didn't beg. She didn't look afraid. She simply waited, giving him the choice. Elias took a slow breath. He didn't want marriage. He didn't want responsibility for an entire alien colony. But he couldn't walk away from innocent people when danger was so close. And Lyra, she wasn't a burden. She wasn't a pity offering. She was a warrior with fire inside her. Elias finally nodded. "I accept the bride," he said, "and I'll defend your colony." The aliens erupted with relief. Lyra let out a small breath, then straightened her shoulders proudly. But Elias didn't know then. Her strength, hidden, incredible, and far beyond what anyone imagined, would soon shock not only him, but the entire colony. The alarm horns of Ralmora echoed across the desert colony, deep and shaking. The sound was old, carved into the towers of the settlement from a time when their people still fought wars with honor. Now, it warned of raiders, violent outsiders who cared nothing for honor. Elias Ward stood in the center of the square with Lyra beside him. The aliens looked at him now, no longer as a visitor, but as the one who had accepted their royal bride. Their laws were simple. If he accepted her, he became their war leader until the threat was gone. Elias had accepted for the sake of survival, but the weight of it rested heavily on his chest. Lyra placed her hand on her floating chair and turned it toward him. Her violet eyes were fierce. "You must give the first order," she said calmly. "They will not move unless you speak." Elias nodded, then raised his voice. "Everyone who can fight, arm up and take positions on the outer wall. Anyone unable to fight, get hidden inside the stone shelters. Move quickly." The aliens hesitated only for a heartbeat. Then they scattered into action, grabbing ancient rifles and energy spears. Elias noticed that some of their weapons were patched with tape and wire. They were in no condition to face a group of trained raiders. Lyra pushed the controls on her floating chair. "I will join the front line." "No," Elias said sharply. "You're staying back where it's safe." She turned to him with a hard look. "Safe? Nothing here is safe. Not for me. Not for anyone. But I can still fight." She placed her palms on the armrests and lifted her body again, muscles flexing hard enough to show clear definition beneath her lavender skin. She didn't even wobble. Elias stared at her, realizing she had trained like this every day, not in comfort or luxury, but in pain and struggle. Lyra's strength wasn't only physical. It was stubborn and unbreakable. "You heal people," she said softly. "You save them. I protect people. This is who I am." Elias didn't argue again. He'd seen soldiers like her before, people who refused to be treated like victims. "Fine," he said, "but you stay close to me." Lyra nodded once, accepting that command. The colony's outer wall wasn't a wall at all, just a low barrier of stone and rusted metal. Beyond it, the desert shimmered under the harsh daylight. Dust clouds rose in the distance. Elias lifted his visor. "How many do you see?" Lyra narrowed her eyes. 22? No, 24. They ride sandcrawlers. Fast ones. Elias swore under his breath. 24 raiders could wipe out a colony this size in minutes. He turned to the group of alien fighters. Only 11 of them, most older or younger than ideal for battle. "We hold them here," Elias said. "Don't break formation. Shoot only when you have a clear target." Lyra pulled out 2 metal rods attached to her chair. With a twist of her wrist, each rod crackled with electric energy. "These are Royal Guard weapons," she explained. "Designed for close combat." Elias stared. "Close combat?" "Lyra, they're coming with guns." "And I am coming with purpose," she replied. Before Elias could answer, the desert roared. The raiders appeared over a hill, riding their sand crawlers, long metal platforms with engines that screamed like wild beasts. Their armor was black and dusty, their faces hidden behind cracked masks. "Positions!" Elias shouted. The fighters raised their weapons. Heartbeats pounded. The air felt thick and electric. The raiders charged straight toward the colony, firing wild shots that sent sparks flying across the sand. Elias ducked behind a metal panel and yelled, "Return fire!" Laser streaks cracked through the air. The aliens fired back, trying to slow the incoming wave. One raider fell off his crawler, crashing into the sand. Another swerved to avoid a blast. Lyra held her rods tightly. "Let me go forward," she said. "No." Elias aimed and fired. "You stay behind cover." "I can take down their leader," she insisted. Elias gritted his teeth. "You don't have legs, Lyra." "I don't need them," she snapped. And before he could grab her, she slammed the control pad on her chair, sending the floating seat shooting forward like an arrow. "Lyra!" Elias shouted. Her floating chair cut through the chaos. She lowered her body, gripping both rods. She moved with shocking speed, weaving between the raiders' shots. Her hair whipped in the wind, and her eyes glowed with focus. A raider on a crawler spotted her and sneered. He aimed his gun at her chest. Lyra didn't panic. She leaned her body to the right, narrowly avoiding the bullet. Her chair swung around the crawler, and she slammed one electrified rod into the raider's ribs. The shock threw him off the machine instantly. Elias watched with wide eyes. What the hell? Lyra moved like she had rehearsed this 100 times. Her arms were impossibly strong. Every motion was sharp, clean, full of discipline. Another raider charged her, swinging a metal blade. Lyra blocked it with her rod. Sparks flying. Her chair turned sharply, letting her strike the raider across the face. He dropped like a stone. Elias realized something then. Lyra was not a burden. Lyra was a weapon. But just as she took down her fourth raider, the largest sandcrawler crested the hill. It was twice as big as the others, armored with thick plates. A giant raider stood on top of it. Clearly the leader. He pointed at Lyra, then growled to his warriors. "Bring me the Legless girl," he shouted. "Alive!" The battle was far from over, and Lyra's greatest secret had not yet been revealed. The giant sandcrawler stopped on top of the hill, like a metal beast watching its prey. The leader stood tall on its surface, his heavy boots planted wide, and his armor made of thick, black plates. His mask had long red scratches across it, and his voice echoed with pride and cruelty. "Bring me the Legless girl alive," he roared again. His raiders howled in response. Elias felt a cold wave rush through him. Lyra was already fighting too far from the colony wall. Her floating chair glided across the sand, swerving between attackers, but the leader's command changed everything. Now every raider focused on her. "Fall back!" Elias shouted. "Lyra, fall back to the wall." But Lyra didn't retreat. Her face hardened. She gripped her electric rods tightly and spun her chair around. "If I go back, they'll follow me into the colony. I must stop them here." Elias cursed under his breath. She was brave, braver than anyone he had met. But her bravery could get her killed. The raiders advanced toward her in a tight formation. Their leader raised a huge rifle, the barrel glowing with red energy. It was not a normal weapon. It looked like something designed to punch through armored vehicles. He aimed directly at Lyra. Elias fired his gun again and again, trying to hit the leader, but his shots bounced off the thick armor plates. Damn it! The alien fighters around him were panicking, unsure where to aim. The raiders moved too fast for their old rifles. "Focus on the front." Elias yelled, "Don't let them reach her." But before anyone could make a difference, the leader pulled the trigger. The huge rifle fired a beam of burning red light. It shot straight toward Lyra. At the last second, Lyra slammed her palm onto the controls. Her floating chair jerked to the left. The red beam hit the sand and exploded into a cloud of fire and dust. Lyra was alive, but the blast pushed her sideways, knocking her chair off balance. She spun uncontrollably for a moment, her arms grabbing the rods to stop herself from falling out. Elias sprinted forward. "Lyra, I'm coming." The raiders opened fire at him. Shots hit the sand by his feet, kicking up dirt. One grazed his shoulder, burning through his jacket. He kept running anyway, refusing to stop. Lyra steadied herself and turned her chair toward him. "Don't come here. You'll be caught in the crossfire." "Too late," Elias shouted. The leader watched them calmly, as if everything was unfolding exactly how he planned. Then he raised a hand and made a quick signal. 5 raiders peeled away from the group and raced toward the back of the battlefield. They weren't coming for Elias or Lyra. They were heading straight for the colony. Elias saw them. They're going for civilians. Lyra's eyes widened. "My people." Elias had seconds to choose. Go after the raiders and save the colony, or help Lyra fight the leader directly. But Lyra made the choice for him. Protect them, she said firmly. I will handle the leader. You can't take him alone. Yes, I can. Her voice was steady. Because I've done it before. Elias stared. What? Lyra took a slow breath. You think these raiders came today because of luck? No. They have hunted my people for years. I fought their last leader before I lost my legs. Elias froze. This was the truth she had never spoken. They cut off my legs, she continued. They wanted the royal bloodline broken. They thought it would make me helpless. She tightened her grip on her glowing rods. Her voice became cold. But I am not helpless. Elias nodded slowly. There was no hesitation in her eyes. No fear. Promise me, Lyra said, you will protect the colony. Elias looked toward the desert where the 5 raiders sped toward the settlement. Behind them, children and elders were running into the shelters. They wouldn't make it in time. I promise, he said. Lyra gave him a small, sharp smile. Then go. Elias sprinted back toward the colony, shouting for the fighters to follow him. The younger warriors ran after him, leaving only the older aliens to guard the wall. Lyra turned her chair toward the leader. He stepped down from the giant crawler and approached her slowly. So, he growled, the broken princess returns. Lyra's face stayed calm, but her hands tightened on her rods. You are not worthy of calling me princess. The leader laughed, the sound deep and mocking. Still proud? Even now? You have no legs, no army, no throne. I don't need a throne, Lyra said. Only justice. Her chair surged forward. The leader charged at the same moment. Their weapons collided with a blast of sparks. Lyra struck him with an electric rod, but the thick armor absorbed most of the shock. He swung a heavy metal blade at her. She dodged, barely escaping the blow. Her chair dipped low, then shot upward again. The leader was big, fast, and brutal. Lyra was smaller, but she was quicker and far more focused. Elias glanced back only once while running toward the colony. He saw Lyra and the leader clashing again, the sand around them glowing with energy. Please survive, he thought. But Lyra wasn't fighting to survive. She was fighting to end him. The desert wind blew hard as Lyra and the raider leader clashed again. Sparks burst every time her glowing rods hit his heavy armor. He swung his huge blade down at her, each strike strong enough to cut her chair in half. Her floating chair jerked left and right, reacting quickly to her hand movements. It felt like watching a dance between a giant beast and a fast-moving flame. Lyra's breathing was steady. Her face was calm. She had waited years for this moment. Still fast. The leader growled, circling her. But speed cannot save you forever. Lyra didn't answer. She waited for his next move. Behind her, the colony fighters followed Elias toward the 5 raiders heading for the settlement. He didn't have time to look back at Lyra's fight, but her image stayed in his mind, her fearlessness, her focus, her refusal to run. Elias charged ahead with 3 alien warriors beside him. Spread out, he ordered. Cut them off before they reached the gate. The raiders were riding small sand bikes that kicked up thick trails of dust. They were fast, too fast for most of the colony fighters to hit. Elias fired his gun twice, forcing 2 raiders to swerve. He sprinted harder, ignoring the pain in his burned shoulder. The youngest alien fighter, a thin boy with sharp eyes, shouted, "We cannot reach them in time." "Yes, we can," Elias said. "Trust me." He saw something ahead, a narrow ridge where the sand bikes would have to pass through single file. Perfect. Block the ridge. Elias yelled. He and the fighters ran toward it, sliding into position just as the raiders reached the spot. The raiders screamed in frustration as their speed slowed. Elias fired first, hitting the lead raider's bike. It spun out of control, flipping onto the sand. The other raiders jumped off their bikes and rushed forward with blades and blasters. "Hold the line," Elias shouted. The young fighters fought bravely, striking again and again. 2 raiders fell quickly, surprised by the sudden resistance. One of the alien boys stabbed a raider through the side and shouted with shock. He had never killed before. "We're not done yet," Elias yelled. Another raider swung at Elias with a curved blade. Elias ducked, grabbed the raider's wrist, and slammed him into the sand. He kicked the blade away and pointed his gun at the last raider. "Drop your weapon," Elias said. The raider hissed and swung instead. Elias fired. The raider dropped. The colony was safe. But Elias didn't celebrate. He dropped to one knee, breathing hard. He looked up toward the hill where Lyra was fighting and felt the fear return. He needed to get back to her. Lyra and the leader fought in a wide circle now. The sand around them was torn up from the battle. Her arms ached, but her eyes stayed sharp. "You are weaker than before," the leader said. "No legs, less balance, no soldiers to protect you." "You talk too much," Lyra replied. She twisted her chair sideways, avoiding another heavy strike. The blade hit the sand with a loud explosion of dust. The leader snarled. "How many times must I break you?" "Just try," Lyra whispered. Her rod sparked bright blue as she thrust both forward. The leader blocked one rod with his blade, but the second rod jabbed into the gap under his arm. Electricity burst across his armor. The leader roared and stumbled back. Lyra breathed hard. That was a strong hit, but not enough. He recovered quickly and charged with a furious cry. His blade came down. Lyra crossed her rods and caught the blade between them. The force pushed her chair back, grinding across the sand, causing sparks at the bottom. Her arms trembled. Her teeth clenched. She couldn't hold him long. Elias arrived at the top of the hill at that moment. He froze, watching the impossible scene. Lyra was locked against a giant who outweighed her by several times. Her arm shook badly. The leader pressed harder. She was losing. "Lyra!" Elias shouted. She didn't look at him. Her eyes locked on the leader's. Her voice came out low. "You ruined my kingdom. You hurt my people. You stole everything, but not my strength." She let go of both rods. The leader gasped. The sudden release caused his own weight to throw him forward. He stumbled. His blade slammed into the sand. Lyra grabbed the controls. Her chair shot upward, spinning around him like a quick silver streak. Her rods recharged instantly. She struck him once, under the arm again, then twice behind the knee joint, then a third, powerful strike to the side of his helmet. A sharp crack filled the air. The helmet dented. The leader fell to one knee. Lyra hovered above him, breathless but steady. "You are finished," she said. "No," he growled. "I am your nightmare." He lunged upward, grabbing the side of her chair with both hands. The chair tilted dangerously. Lyra tried to pull away, but his grip was like iron. Elias sprinted toward them. "Lyra!" The leader laughed and began to crush the chair with his bare hands. Metal groaned under the pressure. Lyra struck his wrist with a rod, but he didn't let go this time. The chair snapped. Lyra fell onto the sand. Her rods rolled out of reach. The leader stood over her, raising his blade. Elias was still too far. Lyra looked up, breathing hard. She wasn't afraid. She was angry, and she wasn't done. Lyra lay on the sand, breathing fast. The heat burned her palms, but she kept her eyes locked on the leader towering over her. His massive blade glimmered in the bright sun. His armor hummed with anger. His voice was low and cruel. "You should have died long ago," he said. "A princess without legs to joke. A weak memory of a dead kingdom." Lyra didn't move. She waited. The leader lifted the blade high. Elias was still running toward them, but he was too far away. His lungs burned, and every step felt heavy. "Lyra, move." But Lyra couldn't move fast enough. She didn't need to. The leader brought the blade down with full force. Lyra twisted her body at the last second. The blade hit the sand where her head had been, exploding dirt into the air. She felt the shock wave through her bones. He lifted the blade again, angrier than before. "Stop running, princess." Lyra reached out, grabbed a handful of sand, and threw it into his face. He roared and stepped back, rubbing his eyes. It didn't blind him for long, but it gave her enough time to reach for one of her fallen rods. Her fingers brushed it, but not close enough. The leader stomped on her hand before she could grab it. Pain shot through her arm, and she screamed. "You fight like a child," he growled. Elias arrived at the same moment. He threw himself forward and tackled the leader from the side. The giant stumbled, but only for a moment. He shoved Elias back, sending him rolling across the sand. Elias rose, panting. "You want someone to fight? Fight me?" The leader laughed. "A human? With no armor? No strength? You think you can stop me?" Elias didn't reply. He tightened his grip on his gun, aimed at the leader's head, and the leader kicked the gun out of his hands before he could fire. The weapon spun through the air and landed several meters away. Elias cursed. He backed up quickly, dodging a sweeping strike from the leader's blade. Lyra crawled toward her second rod, dragging her body forward. Her fingertips brushed it, closer, closer. The leader noticed her and stepped onto the rod, trapping it under his heel. "No more tricks," he snarled. Lyra froze. She looked up at him, breathing heavily. Her hair was dusty, her skin scraped, her chair broken behind her, but her eyes were still sharp. The leader raised his blade again. Elias charged toward him with nothing but his fists. "Leave her alone." The leader turned and swung the blade. Elias ducked under it, grabbed a handful of the leader's armor straps, and punched him across the mask. The hit barely made the leader flinch, but Elias didn't stop. He punched again, and again. The leader growled, grabbed Elias by the chest armor, and lifted him off the ground like a toy. "You humans," the leader said, always interfering. Elias struggled, kicking at the leader's arm, but the grip tightened like a metal vise. Lyra watched helplessly as Elias's face turned red. No, she wouldn't lose him. Not after everything. Lyra looked at her broken chair. Its battery core still flickered weakly inside the cracked frame. She reached for a metal shard near her hand and began prying the core out. Her fingers trembled, but she didn't stop. The leader dragged Elias closer. "You protect a useless princess? A broken woman. She is 10 times stronger than you." Elias gasped. The leader tightened his grip. Lyra ripped the battery core free. It sparked violently in her hands. Unstable, overloaded, dangerous. Perfect. She took a deep breath, steadied her shaking arm, and shouted, "Hey!" "Monster." The leader turned his head. Lyra threw the sparking battery core at his chest. The core hit his armor and exploded in a burst of white-blue electricity. The shock wave knocked the leader backward. His grip on Elias broke instantly. Elias fell to the sand, coughing. The leader staggered, sparks dancing across his armor. His mask flickered with damaged lights. Lyra pushed herself toward Elias. "Are you okay?" He coughed again and nodded weakly. "I'm fine, thanks to you." The leader roared and slammed his fist into the ground. "Enough!" He wasn't dead, but he was hurt, badly. His steps were slower now. Electricity crackled across his chest, and smoke rose from the cracked armor plates. Lyra grabbed her second rod, the one he had stepped on earlier. Its handle was bent, but it still hummed with power. Elias reached for his gun on the ground. His shoulder hurt, but he pushed through the pain. "Lyra, together." She nodded. The leader stood tall again, though his breath came heavier. "You think you've won?" Lyra lifted her rod. "Not yet, but soon." Elias leveled his gun. "This ends now." The leader charged. Elias fired, hitting the damaged armor again and again. Lyra spun her chair's remaining engine to lift herself slightly and struck the leader's exposed side with her rod. Electricity burst out, mixing with the broken battery's leftover energy. The leader roared, louder than ever. He dropped to one knee, then both. Then he collapsed face first into the sand. Silence settled over the battlefield. Elias lowered his gun slowly. Lyra remained still for several seconds, waiting to see if the leader moved again. He didn't. He was finally defeated. Elias turned to her. "Lyra, you did it." Lyra breathed shakily, staring at the fallen giant. "No," she said softly. "We did it." For the first time, she allowed herself to smile. She looked at Elias, not as a human stranger, not as an outsider, but as the one person who believed in her strength before anyone else. The next morning, the colony was alive with a tense mix of fear and hope. News of the previous night's battle had spread like wildfire. The Sky Rippers had attacked, and the legless alien girl, Lyra, had stood her ground. Her bravery, strength, and the strange glow of her crystal limbs became the talk of every street and building. Some whispered in awe, calling her a protector sent from the gods. Others whispered in fear, worried that such power could one day turn against them. Alex moved through the colony, helping to build barricades and organize defenses, carrying heavy metal sheets that would normally require 3 people. Beside him, Lyra floated effortlessly, her new limbs reflecting the bright morning sunlight, faint sparks dancing along the edges. "Are you in pain?" he asked softly, concern in his eyes. "No," she said, smiling faintly. "It feels natural. I was never meant to walk. I was meant to rise." Alex shivered, not from cold, but from awe. She radiated calm determination, as if nothing in the universe could shake her. Suddenly, the sky began to change. Bright daylight turned streaked with deep red lines that stretched across the horizon like burning scratches. The sand under their feet began to tremble slightly, then stronger. Boom, boom, boom. The vibrations grew, echoing across the valley and making the metal barricade hum with tension. Alien families froze in fear, clutching children. Soldiers raised rifles, scanning the horizon for movement. A sharp, piercing screech cut through the morning air. The Sky Rippers were near, their shadowy forms darting against the sunlight. Alex instinctively moved closer to Lyra. "Stay behind me," he said, but she shook her head. "This time I protect you," she said firmly. Her violet eyes glowed with determination. Kava, the colony chief, arrived at a sprint, his usually calm face tightened with worry. "Human," he said, pointing at Alex, "we need you at the west gate. You are strong. Hold the gate long enough for civilians to get inside." Alex nodded quickly. Kava then turned to Lyra, his expression mixing fear and respect. "Lyra, you are no longer fragile. Go to the central tower. Use your ability. Protect the heart of our colony." Lyra bowed gracefully. "I will." Alex took her hand for a moment, feeling the heat of her crystal limbs. "We split up?" he asked. "Just for a little while," she whispered, touching his cheek lightly, and he felt a warmth of reassurance he couldn't explain. Alex sprinted to the west gate with a team of soldiers. Explosions shook the ground around them, sending clouds of dust and debris into the air. The Sky Rippers swooped low, their wings like razors glinting in the sunlight. Alex braced himself against the heavy metal gate, pushing with all his strength as terrified civilians ran through. His lungs burned and his shoulder ached from yesterday's battle, but he didn't falter. Beside him, soldiers fired energy rifles, hitting the attackers where they could. One raider's metal wing cracked, and they spiraled into the sand. Alex dubbed to drag a fallen worker inside the gate and shouted, "Keep moving! Faster!" Each second counted. Every civilian who made it inside safely felt like a small victory, but the threat overhead remained immense. Meanwhile, Lyra ascended the central tower with incredible speed. Her crystal limbs cut through the air, each movement precise and controlled. Below, Sky Rippers circled, firing explosive rounds at the tower's base, trying to destroy the colony's power source. The tower glowed faintly as she passed its surface, and her arms extended outward. A soft hum began from her body, growing louder with every breath, filling the air. The attackers faltered as her energy tugged at their armor and wings, slowing them in midair. "I will not let you hurt my home," Lyra whispered, and then, with a sudden burst, a wave of blinding light shot from her body. Screams echoed as Sky Rippers fell from the sky, crashing to the sand or spiraling away, broken and scattered. Alex looked up, shielding his eyes against the brightness. He had never seen anything like it. The colony soldiers cheered below him, the first real signs of hope in days. But Alex's heart raced with fear. The energy around Lyra flickered like unstable fire. She was pushing herself beyond her limits. "Hold on, Lyra," he whispered, gripping the gate tightly. One by one, the Sky Rippers withdrew, retreating into the desert. The colony had survived. For now, Lyra slowly descended from the tower, her glow dimming as she floated down. She collapsed onto the sand, exhausted beyond measure. Alex ran to her side, lifting her gently. "Lyra, stay with me." Her breathing was shallow, but she smiled faintly. "I protected them," she whispered. "You protected everyone," he said, holding her close. She shook her head slightly, her eyes serious again. But the Sky Rippers were only scouts. Alex froze, his blood running cold. Scouts meant the main force was still coming, bigger, faster, deadlier. He tightened his hold, determination burning in his chest. Lyra, the legless alien girl who defied every expectation, had already saved the colony once. But their greatest challenge still loomed ahead, and he knew that together they would face it. The desert wind swept across them, carrying the smell of smoke, dust, and hope as both human and alien braced for the storm to come. The sun was high, burning the desert with bright, unforgiving light. The colony's defenders readied themselves, hearts pounding, knowing the Sky Ripper's main attack was imminent. Dust swirled in the air as distant shadows grew larger, darkening the horizon. Scouts had been only the beginning. Hundreds of Sky Rippers descended in formation, their metal wings gleaming, claws ready, and weapons glowing with deadly energy. The colony trembled as they approached, the ground vibrating with the beat of thousands of feet and wings. Soldiers gripped their rifles, civilians huddled behind barricades, and Alex's chest tightened with fear. He glanced at Lyra, whose crystal limbs reflected the sunlight like 1,000 shards of glass. Her face was calm, determined, but Alex could see her exhaustion from yesterday. He ran to her side, gripping her arm gently. "Lyra, are you ready?" She nodded. "I've never been more ready. This is our home. I won't let them take it." The Sky Rippers attacked with terrifying speed. Explosions tore through the sand as their projectiles hit the colony walls. Alex fired his gun, taking down the nearest attackers, while soldiers around him did the same. Civilians screamed, running for safety. Despite the chaos, Alex pushed forward, helping any injured workers and keeping the gate secure. Lyra rose above the battlefield, her crystal limbs glowing brighter with every second. The hum of her energy grew into a low roar, filling the air, shaking the attackers. She extended her arms wide, and a wave of blinding light pulsed outward, stopping the Sky Rippers mid-flight. Sparks flew, wings faltered, and many crashed into the sand, defeated by a power they couldn't understand. Yet more kept coming, relentless, testing her strength. Alex realized she could not hold them all alone. He shouted for the soldiers to push forward while he protected the civilians. Together, they formed a line, a moving shield against the attackers. Lyra hovered above, striking with precision, each pulse of energy throwing dozens of Sky Rippers back. She moved faster than anyone had imagined possible, dodging blades, deflecting projectiles, and targeting the energy cores of the enemy's machines. Her face was fierce, determined, glowing with power that made even Alex's heart tremble. The Sky Ripper's commander appeared, a massive alien in black armor, clearly stronger than the rest. His weapon crackled with energy. Lyra saw him and raised her arms, preparing to meet the challenge. Alex realized the final battle was here. The commander swooped down, aiming directly at Lyra. Alex fired at him, but the shots bounced off the thick armor. The commander landed near Lyra, massive claws digging into the sand. They circled each other, energy crackling between them. Lyra's body pulsed with light. She lifted off the ground, spinning her rods, striking the commander repeatedly. His armor held, but each hit left cracks. Sparks flew. The other Sky Rippers hesitated, intimidated by their leader being challenged so fiercely. Alex ran forward, dodging debris and explosions, shouting for the soldiers to hold the line. Civilians watched in awe as the Legless girl, once thought weak, faced the most dangerous enemy with strength, speed, and brilliance beyond imagination. Lyra's energy pulse grew brighter, stronger, radiating outward. The commander roared and struck at her with enormous force. She dodged, spinning gracefully, using her crystal rods to channel the energy from her body into a focused blast. The impact hit the commander square in the chest, shattering part of his armor and sending him tumbling into the sand. Lyra hovered above, breathing heavily but steady. The remaining Sky Rippers faltered. Without their commander, their coordination broke apart. Soldiers pressed forward, Alex leading the charge, cutting off any stragglers. Civilians fled to safety behind barricades, amazed at the sheer power of their defender. Lyra's light continued to pulse, guiding the colony through the chaos. Finally, the commander tried to rise again. His armor sparking, body struggling, he looked up at Lyra. Her eyes were fierce, unwavering. She extended her rods one last time, channeling all her remaining energy. A blinding beam shot out, striking him squarely. He screamed, and then silence fell. The battlefield quieted. Dust and smoke swirled in the bright daylight. The Sky Rippers scattered, their numbers broken, defeated. The colony had survived. Soldiers cheered. Civilians wept in relief. Alex ran to Lyra, who floated down slowly, her limbs glowing faintly now, her energy almost spent. "You did it," he whispered. She smiled weakly. "We did it," she said, voice trembling with exhaustion but filled with triumph. Together, human and alien had fought side by side. The impossible had been achieved. As the sun began to set, painting the desert in gold and crimson, Alex and Lyra looked over the colony. Buildings were damaged, walls scorched, but people were alive. Children ran to their parents. Soldiers tended to the wounded, and for the first time in years, hope shone brighter than fear. Lyra rested her head lightly on Alex's shoulder. "The Sky Rippers are gone for now," she murmured. "But we are ready." Alex nodded, understanding the weight of her words. This colony had survived because of courage, strength, and the power to rise when all seemed lost. And in the heart of it all, a legless alien girl had become a symbol of hope, resilience, and a spirit that could never be broken. The sun set fully, casting long shadows across the desert as the colony began to rebuild, stronger and united, ready for whatever the universe might throw at them next.